Venri Chapter 23. Timeline. Priority. Perseus Vale. Shepard. Seeing Tally had lifted her spirits and made her heart beat faster. Like a mother duck counting lethal baby ducklings, the loss of Thane and Morden had left holes in her heart. Seeing Tally alive filled a hole that had been sinking in worry. Communication with the Quarian flotilla had been lost, and she and Tally had not been able to talk recently. How much she had been worried came home to her when seeing Tally melted some ice she'd been holding in her chest. She managed to not disrupt Tally moving on board and settling in, but as soon as she could, invited her up to the cabin and submerged in catching up. Tally got one of those jumpy, hopping, and laughing hugs that Rex had commented on avoiding. She stood with her hands on Tally's hips for a long time, just looking at her, smiling. She said through a grin, "I am so stupid happy to see you." Tally laughed and hugged her again. Then they moved into the room and took up places on the couch. "You did it. We did it. Admiral Talizora. Was Normandy. Tell me about Cal." "He is all right now. He was injured. He will be recuperating with the flotilla. He lost a hand in the fight with the Geth." "I'm so sorry, Tally." "Thank you. He no longer has the infection, and he is not the happiest man in the world, injured, and me leaving. Happiness right now is rare enough, but I do feel it, seeing you. As do I, my friend. We can always have him transferred here." "We can't all afford to be that distracted. Garrus is well?" "He looks well." "Garrus is well. As much as I would love to have Cal here, he is safest with the flotilla, under isolation and care with those who know how to care for our physiology. He is working on the link-ups to his new prosthetic. With all the upgrades, I'm a little jealous of the dexterity he will have." "Yes, of course. Wanting to help doesn't always mean I can help, but if you change your mind, you will be the first to know, after I've asked Dr. Shakwas all about it." Timeline. Despoina. Leviathan. Garrus. The idea of Moram going under the water in a battered and probably leaking monstrosity was their only option? That couldn't be the case. He needed to stall, get more time, think of something else. "Hold on a second, are we actually considering this?" He said we, hopefully, not literally. She was not only considering it, she was acting on it. Her face was closed, and he could tell she was considering all options, but she and he were coming up empty on alternatives. "Listen, Shepard, I'm all for crazy ideas, but this one's off the charts." She paused, but her professional face did not slip. "We've come too far to stop now. The way home is through Leviathan." He touched her arm, and she almost didn't turn to him, that far gone in plans and schemes, unwilling to deal with him as a person. That made it absolutely necessary she deal with him as a person. As she turned to him, her muscles tense and her eyes barely seeing him, he said, "Hey, you promised me the next Atlas. It's my turn." She tipped her head forward, and he saw her smile, and her presence returned to her eyes. She tilted her forehead to his crest, saying, "Oh, but there's a technicality. It's a Triton, not an Atlas." "That is so cheap. It's beneath you." She kissed him. It's a signature move. He wrapped his arms around her and closed his eyes. His eyes flicked to the readout of her stats, and he was at least assured she wouldn't disappear. No information, no answer. He'd know. She kissed him and then pulled back, her eyes sliding from beloved to commander. She turned back to the Triton and said, "Let's go." He helped her into the cab. "But, Shepard, I'll be fine." That might be true, but he wouldn't be. She leaped into the waves, and he watched as her biometrics flowed across his screen, reassuring himself moment by moment that her heart was still beating. Tally came forward and put her hand on his shoulder. "She'll be back." He turned to her. "Thank you. I promised her faith once. I find it very hard to keep that promise. If I didn't believe, I wouldn't be here." He took a deep breath and tried to focus on Tally. She wanted to distract him. He should look distracted for her. "It is good to have you here, Tally. I mean, not good in the sense that if she doesn't come back, we die of starvation and grief between waves of combat. I mean that you and I have been with her since the beginning. And nobody understands as well as you do." Tally leaned on one leg, her hand on her hip, and he'd learned that was contemplative for her. "It wouldn't be so bad. I've always wanted to get you alone." Okay. That's effectively distracting. You... what? "I was always right down that ramp from you on the Normandy, and I found myself wanting to walk up it so often." "Why didn't you?" "You were distracted." I was indeed, waiting to see if she'd show up. Just like now. Yup, I was the wrong she. No, not wrong. If I'd gotten the hang of this interspecies thing sooner. Well, here we are, alone at last in a romantic, stormy spot, possibly about to die. Thinking about other people. Thinking about other people. Cal Rieger would not forgive me if I allowed myself to die out here after promising not to, so we have to live. Garrus heard a streak of noise that meant incoming. "Time to earn our keep. We've got people waiting on us." They scrambled to cover and started taking down the incoming husks. Fortunately, they were not all that smart, and it was easy. On the bright side, we have lots of ammo. Hey, if you and Cal have kids, would you ever think of calling one of them Garrus? It's a great name. It's better than his family's names. Some of them are from the Quib. Garrus squinted and aimed. "So you're saying there's a chance?" They continued to kill waves of intruders. Morm's vitals were steady except for a massive rise in stress, which wouldn't be unexpected. They settled in closer to the shuttle to keep escape access and protect Cortez. It wasn't a difficult fight. His mind stayed occupied on focusing on targets between alternately allowing himself to panic and then calming himself down because his heart rate needed to be steady for distance shots. I should have stopped her. You didn't have an alternative. She's still alive. For how long? Focus on keeping the deck cleared for her return. Maybe there's another Triton. Maybe I should just jump in and try to look around. Her readings don't look like a fight. She's still okay. She's not okay. Stress levels are higher than you've ever seen and rapidly climbing, and her other stats are dropping as though time has sped up and she's gone through a day's worth of resources in 10 minutes. Is that all it's been? 10 minutes? She finally surfaced and fell on the deck, pale and choking, her nose, her ear, bleeding. He scrambled to her through the Reaper forces fighting each other as though charmed. Did she do this? He had no more thoughts for himself with a scramble back to the shuttle and an escape from somewhere and something he didn't understand. She'd jumped straight into it. She's here. She's okay. She's not okay. He held her in his arms and tried to find her pulse, icy skin against his hands. Shepard, wake up. He turned to Tally. She's freezing. Take off her armor? Leave it on? He had no idea. Her eyes opened and he said a not poetic thing that happens when people panic, an attempt to make everything all right by getting a simple answer. You okay? She's not okay. I know it's the answer you want, but she's not okay. Her eyes can't focus, and she's still bleeding from places that don't happen unless the brain is under stress. Was it from water pressure? Why did he let her go again? She coughed and tried to clear her expression for him, though he wasn't sure she actually saw him. Yeah, I'm fine. He was not reassured, and he almost laughed at her. He shook her once. Hell of a headache. As if that was enough of an explanation. He was relieved, angry, confused, and helpless. Never do that again. Normally she'd make some sort of joke, but she wasn't even up to that. She explained. And he didn't know what to believe. Was she hallucinating? No, the charmed Reapers backed her up. They were leaving, which confirmed that she'd gotten something done. He warmed her hands between his, and she was leaning on him out of necessity, not comfort. When she started to throw up, his panic ratcheted higher. When she was unable to stop, it got worse. She was dry heaving, and not trembling, but shaking. When the seizure hit her, he put the back curve of a talon between her teeth to keep her from biting her tongue. Tally scrambled to the intercom. Commander Shepard is having a seizure. Dr. Shakwas, please meet us in the shuttle bay on arrival. Liara! Get Liara! Liara, please. She needs help. Garrus did his best to keep her from doing harm to herself. He protected her neck and kept her arms from flailing, and Tally held her feet still as much as she could. He held his head down to hers, his crest on her forehead, whispering her name over and over. Lauren, Venri, shh. Come back to me. Karen and Liara rushed onto the shuttle, and Karen got her a shot of something that stopped the racking of her body. Javik was close behind them. Liara knelt beside Moram and touched her temple, then rocked back on her heels and cried out. Javik steadied Liara and put his hand on hers. Javik contemplated for a moment, and then guided Liara's hand back to Moram's temple. Javik stepped over to Garrus and said, You must leave. There is no way in hell I'm leaving her. Whatever you need to do, you must leave. I will carry her, and you will be far away. Garrus would have hit him if his hands weren't occupied already. He removed his hands from her teeth because his fist needed to clench. Garrus, it's for her. You need to do it for her. I can explain later, much later, but right now, I need to help her, and you can't be near. Garrus, do as they say. I need to get her physically stabilized, and I can't do it here. Javik and Liara know by touch. Can you do that? Garrus let Javik lift her from his nerveless hands while he sat, unable to stand. The idea that he wasn't the best thing for her was foreign and something he couldn't and didn't accept, but his other option was to murder the people trying to help her. Tally came forward and put her hand on his shoulder, and he stood calmly for her. If she hadn't been there, he might have destroyed every breakable thing in the shuttle. Tally was breakable. She was very, very breakable, and he wouldn't let drama put her in danger. Cortez, who had been leaning on the door between the cabin and the pilot's chair, shook his head and asked, "What happened?" "I don't know. Whatever happened under the water. When she wakes, we'll ask her." Cortez nodded, and although he was obviously tense and worried, he went about his after-mission checklist to maintain the shuttle. It was an example, and Garrus would take it. Work. Get the next thing done if you can't do anything else. He heard Tally say, "Faith. Faith." He closed his eyes and thought. "Tally, go tell them everything we witnessed and everything she said. They need your help, and I'm certain they have questions." She looked at him as though to measure his sanity, and he tried to give her some to measure. "Faith. Tally, she's incapacitated. The Normandy has no commander, and I cannot be with her. I need to go talk to Joker and get us somewhere safe." There were rules, precedents, things he could do if he couldn't help her body. He could help her spirit. He could make sure the Normandy was safe. Tally left to follow after Moram, and Garrus headed to the CIC. Joker asked, "Hey, is she okay?" "No, she's not okay. She's incapacitated. Karen, Liara, and Javik are working on her, and they tell me I can't be near and can't help, so I'm here instead. We're cloaked, but we're gonna start tripping over Reapers soon. There's never just one anymore." "Yeah, we did notice that." "So, you're in charge?" "Yes. I need the status of the ship." "We're good. We're not overextended on fuel, and stealth is holding up, but I worry about company." "Okay. Edie, what is the nearest medical facility? Search for Asari priority." "There is an Asari colony not far." "Level of advancement?" 2. "We need a level 5 at least. I'm out of my depth. Edie, help me. She had mental contact with an ancient species. Possibly she is under their control, though that seems unlikely, as they could have just kept us there. They do clearly oppose the Reapers, but at this point I don't know if that's just eliminating competition. I don't know how to detect their influence, but I do want to know who can. Liara and Javik are working on it, but I need a specialist." "There is a facility on Thessia that specializes and is the best, but I would not recommend it, as Thessia is a main Reaper target, and the hospital is likely compromised." "All right, then. Please calculate for refueling, security, and access to specialized medical personnel. Commander Shepard is no longer fit for duty and will not be until she is cleared from interference from something we don't understand by someone we may not be able to trust." "Oh, that's going to be fun. I'm not going to tell her." "I'll tell her. If they let me. At least if she hits me, we know I can take it." "You could always order Liara to do it." "Based on those parameters, there is a Solarian research colony that is much closer than other options, nearer to this system. Level 5 facility. There are Asari specialists in residence." "Okay. Joker, head that way. Immediate priority is to determine extent of her injury in terms of a mission. Secondary priority is to maintain stealth and avoid any follow-up Reaper contact. Evade as necessary." "Aye, aye. So is that trip good or bad?" "Seems bad, but a Reaper crashing into an ocean and drowning is also a good sign." "Could have been much worse. Reaper at the bottom of the ocean, and not her, is a start. We'll work on the rest. She says they will assist us. Who is they? I have no idea. They seemed kind of shy. Alrighty then. Edie gave me the specs. I'll change course. Thank you. Edie, run mission updates and communication alerts through me. Acknowledged. He made his way first down to the medbay. What she'd do would be to reassure her crew, and he could do that for her, but he needed information. Liara, Javik, and Karen were busy with her. He didn't go in. Karen had left the blinds open and he could see, but he wouldn't enter the room. No more seizures. No more blood. She was bone pale and still. Liara was sitting beside her on the bed, her hand on Moram's temple. Karen was busy with analysis. Javik stood behind Liara with his hand on her shoulder. Tally saw him and came out, hugged him, and he gratefully returned the hug. I'm not sure I understand, but I'll tell you what they think is happening. From Liara's impression, what happened is that much like when she had the Prothean information put directly in her brain from the beacon, the Leviathan gave direct information to her and took direct information from her. It is more complicated than I understand, but put in technical terms, it would be as though data were implanted directly into a system globally, hijacking or creating or overwriting the data that was already there. Liara is trying to help her absorb that information without losing it. She is also trying to help her keep and find old information that may have been displaced. Garrus clenched his teeth. And I can't be by her side because your presence gives her powerful and unconscious information. I understand Turian bonding less than I do brain chemistry, but it seems that your presence alters her body and mind also? Yes, but she'll be in withdrawal. They will keep her sedated. Garrus, her mind's infrastructure is on fire and flooded with information she can't organize. She needs to remember who she is and who she was. Liara said she had contacted Moram's mind recently, so she has a better idea of what belongs where, so to speak. Javik is trying to keep Liara from being overwhelmed herself. Karen is working on comparing blood samples, I think, from Moram in different states of mind. So if I got near her, she'd remember who you are, not who she was. Garrus felt panic clamp down in lightning tendrils. Tally, she's wearing a necklace. You need to take it off her. Bring it to me. Of course. She did as he asked. He held it carefully. The only time she'd ever taken it off was for their bonding ceremony. She might forget who I am. She might need to forget who I am. That she loves you is on her face. You can show her again. We're headed to a level 5 facility with Asari therapists. Please relay the information when possible and let me know if there's anything they need. I will go inform the crew. Of course, Commander. Garrus started at the title and opened his mouth, but didn't argue. He was going to need all the reinforcement of his authority that he could get. He needed to take every advantage. Tally squeezed his hand and went back into the medbay. He turned, contemplating his next move. His next move was to go to their quarters and put her locket down carefully next to the Turian cruiser model. He remembered her face as she had pretended it was a shuttle letting off tiny Turians. She's going to be okay because you don't know a more agile mind. Faith. she's alive. You are hers. Hold on to that. He moved without thought to her side of the bed and lifted her pillow to his face, took in a deep breath, and stood there for long moments, breathing in who she had been yesterday, wondering who she would be tomorrow. Whoever she was, she needed her ship and crew ready to go. He made the rounds of his crew, starting by updating Cortez on her status. Excellent work on the surface. Thank you. Without your help rigging the Triton, we wouldn't have gotten it done. We'd be there still, running out of ammo. Thank you, Commander. Yeah, that's weird. Not just for you. And hopefully temporary. Anything I should know? How are we doing? Cortez set another example by being professional and concise. Vega was doing pull-ups when Garrus made his way over to him. Always the last to know, huh? I haven't told Trainer yet. Oh, she knows. Who do you think told me? I bet nobody told Alenko. Vega paused at the top of the bar. Well, that does make me feel better. Any questions? Yeah. Was it fucking worth it? What the hell is a Leviathan anyway, and was it worth trading Shepard for it? She thought it was worth it. Before she fell over bleeding. I have that to go on. Yeah, well, she's more than a little loco. And still is, would be my bet. I told Jeff, and I'll tell you. I may be wrong, but now she might be more than a little Leviathan, and I need eyes on her without her knowing there are eyes on her. Got it. Is it true you were kicked out of the medbay? Not allowed into the medbay in the first place. She's struggling for identity, and I'm apparently overpowering. Yeah, I'll buy that. I'll watch. If she forgets you, though, all bets are off, and I'm taking my shot. Taking a shot would be apt in that case. So me and my not fraternizing rule would save my life. I knew I was smart. Yeah, it's not fair, but fair is her thing, not necessarily mine. So am I your second in command? Yeah, you are. Try not to let it change your gentle disposition. All right. She'll be okay. She'll be okay. In the meantime, let's make sure everything else is covered. Vega grunted in assent, and Garrus left to go tell Kaidan. Garrus's general attitude toward Kaidan as a person was to want to punch him for each second he'd made Morim worry or suffer. Then he wanted to shoot him for drawing down on her. As a commander, he needed to reassure and inform his crew. Although with everyone else he'd gone to them, he'd do this differently with Kaidan. Garrus went to the war room table and called Kaidan down to him. Start off by giving him an order and see if he'd follow it or question it. Kaidan followed it without a hint of disagreement, showing up with alacrity and professional demeanor, not a whine or balk to be found. Good. Garrus looked down at Kaidan and said, Commander Shepard is incapacitated. She is under the care of Dr. Shakwas, Liara, and Javik. She is alive, but under similar circumstances as when she contacted the Prothean beacon. I am now in command. Vega is the new XO. Javik and Liara are going to be busy with Shepard's condition for a while. I need to know that when we need to go get something done, you are ready. Kaidan didn't lose his professional stance. Of course, Commander. Anything I can do. Garrus was grateful and only wanted to punch him half as much. Thank you. You were there. You saw it. I need you to head down to the medbay and be available to Dr. Shakwas should she need any information about her previous condition. Yes, sir. As a personal request, not an order, if you are the only witness remaining, would you offer Liara an opportunity to look into your head for anything you don't remember that may be relevant? If I am not mistaken, you also touched the beacon and may have insight to share. Caden's eyebrows went up, but then settled into determination. Happy to be of service, glad to be getting involved and having first-hand knowledge. Good for you, Alenko. Absolutely. If there's anything at all I can do to help, I will. We will get her back on her feet. That's what I like to hear. Thank you. Dismissed. Caden headed down to the medbay and Garrus let out a deep breath he'd been holding. Now I only want to punch him a quarter as much as I used to. I still want to shoot him. Maybe just take out a knee. Morm's stats were stabilizing. Stress far down, though still elevated. Fewer spikes. He went to go feed her stupid hamster and fish. He knew Liara, Tally, Karen, or even Caden would let him know when they had the least update, so he went on about his business, officially informing Traynor and then immersing himself in the day-to-day catastrophes of ship maintenance and Palaven's trials. Hard-won habits bit down and he remembered to eat, remembered to drink. Searching through intel files, his spine froze on a particular line and he contacted Traynor again. I need confirmation of intel regarding a Solarian research site. I have conflicting reports, one from Palaven and one from the Alliance. I need confirmation of status. I need everything, Traynor, now. His father and sister had been evacuated from Cyprotine and were somewhere reasonably safe, but not in the loop. He was not sure he could contact them. The Caduceus research station had last been heard, reporting being hit by Batarian pirates. No further communication. Caduceus was where his mother had been trying a new treatment. Of his two Avas, one was likely dead, and he couldn't tell the other because she wasn't herself. Traynor called him back. I was able to pick up some encrypted communications and video. It looked like a Merc vessel bearing blood pack insignia. I think that's a misdirection because the intercepted communications did not match blood pack encryption and came from a different source. The associated user is Kahairo Balak. Batarian External Forces. According to intel, he is the highest-ranking member of the hegemony left alive. The sharp stab of ice to the gut stayed out of his voice. Thank you. Please confirm with Edie. I need all information available on his whereabouts and activities. This is a priority. We need everything now. Kahairo Balak. They'd met while the man was trying to drive an asteroid into Terra Nova. Morim had let him go in order to save hostages. Garrus would have killed him. He'd said so. Balak had heard. So, make Morim's husband so angry he would hold her responsible for his mother's death. Not a bad guess based on Garrus's temper. This was not a random pirate attack. This was an intended strike to take out Morim's support structure. A vindictive attack that could also potentially gain Balak access to information regarding Turian neurological disorders and by reverse engineering, how to induce them. Garrus's face went blank, dark, and still. He could do everything he wanted to do. He had enough power to go in and see his bondmate. He wouldn't. He had enough power to change course and go directly to Caduceus. He wouldn't. He could make a colossal mistake and try to think like she did instead of going by his own instincts. He wouldn't. These were now his problems to solve, and command was like armor, protective and restricting. What he had to do was to get this right. Morim was his first priority. The Normandy was his second. They needed to hold course to get her help. He called Primarch Victus and told him everything regarding Balak. He tried to contact the Solarian Dalatras but was unable to speak to her. Instead, he contacted the Turian Counselor and asked him to inform the Solarian Counselor of the attack on the research station at Caduceus. The Dalatras called him in return with gratifying speed, and he put her in contact with Primarch Victus in order to coordinate search and rescue efforts. Do not get in each other's way. Both promised action and updates. Both Victus and the Dalatras had been aware his mother was at the station and offered him condolences on his bereavement. He thanked them politely. Bereavement would have to wait. He didn't want to contact his family until he was certain about the station. Tally brought him food to the war table and he thanked her. He didn't want to get into it with Tally or anyone about his mother until he knew more. He asked, "How is she doing?" instead. Liara is still at work. She thinks all of her memories are still there, but they're misfiled, miscategorized in her head. What does Karen say? Pressure change in an unreliable vessel caused brain edema. She functioned well under pressure and adrenaline. Garrus smiled. And stubborn? Tally smiled back. And stubborn. She functioned well enough until circumstances changed. It's possible the Leviathan had her under their control until she reached the surface, or didn't let her go until her vomiting and seizures began. She also had decompression sickness. Karen got her into a hyperbaric chamber to regulate her body's reactions. It's possible also that her headache and other symptoms could come directly from that alone. Does Liara think she's under Leviathan influence? I didn't think to ask, and she didn't say. I imagine if she did, she might not tell me until she was sure. I'll ask her myself. Morim is still sedated. Good. That didn't look like it was fun. If you need anything, I'll let you know. Thank you, Tally. Oh, wait. Hey, did Caden provide any help? Yes. Javik got the information from him and relayed it to Liara. She said it was helpful in the way a photo reference helps with solving a puzzle. She is sorting through innumerable pieces trying to figure out where they go. Good. Thank you. Everything seems to be under control. As much as they can be. I have faith. We will see this through. I can always provide her with new memories. You might even look forward to it. That I do. She put a hand on his shoulder and then moved to her station in the war room, and they worked parallel to one another. By the second day, Morim was deemed able to be conscious if necessary, but she was still sedated. He still was not permitted to see her. He cornered Javik for a better explanation, as Liara was still the primary caretaker of his bondmate's mind, and he didn't want to waste her time. Javik's brevity was for once helpful. By blocking access to certain parts of her own history, Liara has provided Commander Shepard with smaller amounts of information for her to absorb, reducing stress and allowing information to be recalled in a more natural manner. Liara states she retains language and her own personality, both hard-won. The personality of the Leviathan is strong, but she does not believe it was intended to take over Commander Shepard's mind. Her mind is interconnected, and triggering one memory could trigger an entire cascade of too much chaotic information to spill out. We must be cautious. Garrus's face made him say, and patient. Thank you. How much function will she regain, short-term to long-term? I do not know. Commander Shepard has yet to wake from sedation. What do you think will happen? I do not know. Garrus thought he should have known better than to ask. Thank you for your assistance, and thank you for the information. We are headed to Nara Colony. There, Liara can get some therapist backup. How is Liara doing? She is exhausted, and she is strained, and she will not stop. Is there anything I can do? Anything you need? It's yours. Then allow me to pass, and that requirement will be fulfilled. Garrus stood aside and let Javik go. His mind was eerily calm. Leadership allowed him to look to the next right thing to do. There were no major breakthroughs, no change in status either in Morm's condition or in the information about Caduceus. He had a job to do, and he'd let Liara and Karen do theirs. Liara had decided that his scent, his face, and particularly his voice was not something to be taken lightly. He ate, he worked, he drank. He slept no more and no less than 4 hours. He stayed calm. He helped others do the same. He began to see how necessary it was for her to be kind, to be funny, to maintain rapport with such distinct people. He learned new wishes of his heart. Please do not let it be true that my mother suffered. Please let Moram return to me. His work became his walking devotion. Faith. They reached the Nara colony in 3 days. Moram was still sedated, and Liara insisted on meeting the therapist and linking before letting them see to Moram. He agreed completely. Liara had not left Moram's side, had been there for every moment of her crisis. She knew how much Garrus had wanted to be there, and she did everything he could have wanted. She had slept by the 2nd day, but only briefly, and had kept Moram's hand in hers the entire time, in more of a trance than sleep. Liara had not allowed anybody to convince her to do otherwise. Javik had brought her food, run interference between her and Garrus, filled every need of maintenance and concern for her. If he could have transfused his sleep to her, he would have done it. There was no reason to ask if Javik was in love with Liara. It was obvious. There was no need to ask if Liara returned his love, because otherwise she would have sent him away. Whatever they had shared through proximity, through devotion, he recognized it. It hadn't begun with Moram's injury, because Javik had been close enough to Liara to follow her in. Good. Spirits bless you both. May you find happiness. A regal Asari matron by the name of Noir Tekes boarded the Normandy, and after a brief conference with Liara, was allowed to approach Moram. She had skin that flushed more violet than Liara's, with silver dabbling. Karen briefed her as to her physical condition, and Noir's hands reached to Moram as he watched through the glass, helpless and hopeful. He waited patiently, glacial seconds, then minutes, scraping by. Moram was entirely physically stable now, all levels optimum. Noir's probing seemed to not leave a ripple on her stats. It looked as though nothing had happened except that Noir's eyes closed. He watched Moram's placid face for any sign. He'd know soon if his bondmate would return to him, or if he'd spend his life sitting at her side hoping something could break through. Whether or not he would stay away from her for her own good, or be useless at her side, no effect. Please, Venri, hear me. I am ordering you to be well. Noir broke contact and turned to Karen. He couldn't hear what they said. Karen was smiling, though. Noir came out of the medbay and turned to Liara. Simri, you have done well. You will be proud of what you have done for your sister. Liara smiled, tears in her eyes. Thank you, matron. You bring me joy. Noir turned to Garrus. Commander Shakarian, blessings to you and to your Venri. I believe she will be whole. We must move slowly, but we will move. She will return to you. She loves you beyond all things, and it is an honor to know of you. I was on the Citadel when Sovereign attacked. If there is any way further I can be of assistance, I shall be. I am blessed that you called upon me. Whole? She... Noir smiled and lifted her hand to his temple. Will you accept a gift from a supplicant? He nodded, stunned, and she lifted her hand and closed her eyes. With Liara's blessing and Noir's promise, she could do anything with his mind that she wanted. What she wanted was to reassure him and offer her knowledge in a more solid way. Noir had seen Moram's mind and wished to share what she could of what she knew. She would tell him nothing that Moram would not already think he knew, that she'd tried to tell him herself. Moram would hold the galaxy in one hand and him in the other, and he would be more to her. Moram would die for him, live for him, dedicate each breath to him, and count the heartbeats she was with him above others. Moram would not stop, would not change. She was adamant and time, unyielding and uncompromising in her devotion. Peace and faith flooded him, and he stood in that for a moment, then asked if she would do the same for Moram, show her what he felt. Noir offered assent. He asked about how to help Moram. Noir showed him patience, faith, love. He promised that he would do as she asked and thanked her. Noir broke contact and moved to Liara. Simri, you must rest. I will be here. She will be well. It will be no other way. Liara's shoulders sagged. I don't want to leave her now. Your feet must turn off this path as I set my feet upon it. No harm will come. If you... All right. Please. I hear you. Liara turned to Javik, who gave her an arm to lean on. I must speak to Dr. Shakwas, who you must know saved her life, as Liara saved her mind. All will be well. Go and do what you must do. I will speak with you when I am finished here. Garrus nodded and watched as Noir took her place again in the medbay. He still could not touch Morim. Liara had been right. Noir had confirmed. But he would be able to soon. And Morim would be whole.